Hey guys, to continue on the Is It Good series where I will take apart competitive games where people are playing for real money and look at the playstyles and builds that people have to show you guys a playstyle that we know it works because these competitive players are putting money on the line for these builds. Let's look at Liam, and yes, his name says Vespertine on here. This is alternate name for his account, but his name is Liam, and he has several accounts. And in fact, during the filming of this particular game, Liam was number one in North America for playing in the solo lane. With that being said, let's take a look at his Sonya build. Now, I've actually talked to Liam about Sonya, and when I was talking to Liam about Sonya, he said, well, this build I actually only ever do on this map. I have a different Sonya build for other maps, and the good news about this is I actually know both of his builds, and I'm familiar with what he runs because I run very similar builds. So you will have already seen this build on Sonya, but let's look at his playstyle because he's a better Sonya player than I am. I just know the builds. So I'm going to talk about the build that is different first. So the build that's different is going Warpaint into going Shot of Fury to increase the damage of your auto attacks, followed by Poison Spear to increase your burst damage, followed by Wrath of the Berserker, followed by I believe he goes with Mystical Spear. I go with No Escape, but that's okay. Followed by level 16, where he goes for, I want to say, Rampage. I think we both go for Rampage, actually. And then this is situational. So that is an auto attack build, and I'll talk more about that later in another video. But I just wanted to share that so that when I look at this build and I go, guys, this is what Liam runs. He does run two different builds on Sonya. This is his build for Infernal Shrines, and we'll talk about it as we get in. So to start off, he is playing against the Lost Vikings, so it's going to be a little bit of a different playstyle than you would normally see. He ends up taking Warpaint. Tough as Nails is usually the meta option against most solo laners, because you can heal using your E. And Warpaint, and the value of Tough as Nails is so high because it's a block charge that you get very, very quickly, faster than most of the other block charges in the game. And so it allows you to mitigate a lot of the damage from the enemy as well as just out-trade them in general. He's going to be taking Hurricane at level 4, and this game's going to be moving up in levels very, very quickly because, and I just want to talk about this playstyle. Every time he pushes out of the lane, the first thing that he does is he spears onto a turret and immediately attacks, Seismic Slam, attacks, Seismic Slam, attacks, Seismic Slam. When this minion's about to die, he walks away. When the wave shows up, he uses Q, and then he uses E. He gains all of his life back that he lost by playing aggressive, and then he immediately goes back to slamming once again. This playstyle is an extremely aggressive and dominant playstyle, but he does this against a lot of different solo laners. He will be very aggressive against a solo laner, then at the point that they start getting scared, he immediately starts just slamming into the turrets as fast as possible, destroying them very, very quickly. And then when the next wave shows up, he gains enough rage so that he can spin, and he goes right back on it and starts spinning to gain his life back, making sure to grab not only his globe, but sometimes even the enemy's globe as well. This aggressive playstyle nets him essentially the entire front walls first. And this is exactly what you should be doing against the Vikings too, which is trying to do whatever you can to gain a lot of value in the early portions of the game, because Vikings gets really weak post level 20. If you can't close out a game at level 20 against Vikings, then you're going to be in if you're playing with the Vikings and you can't close out the game before 20, you're done. And if you're playing against the Vikings and you can get to level 20, you probably won. So that's what he's trying to do, is he's looking at this objective going, okay, well, I can steal some of this away, and then I'm going to play safe. And, I mean, Totski blows up right there. Remember that this is a game, two competitive teams, this is the grand finals of CCL, and so they're playing pretty seriously here. And Liam heads back in, he spins a little bit, does some damage here, and tries to take a few more of this objectives. He grabs the objective, and then watch where he goes almost immediately. Look at where he's going. So they won this objective mid, and he looks down at bottom, but then he was going to cover bottom. Instead, he changes because the Rainer was able to go grab bottom lane, so then he goes up to top lane. As a solo laner on this map, you should join your team for an objective, and then you should go back to soaking lanes. Now, the later the game goes, the more you want to join your team, but the early portions of the game as a solo laner, you join for any sort of thing that gives a huge amount of value. Don't join team fights that don't have rewards. You join team fights that have big rewards, and the bigger the reward of the team fight, the more likely you are to join your team. The lower the reward, stay in lane. You know, don't even worry about it. He plays safe here. Why is he not pushing? Well, we don't know where the enemies are. And so he's actually playing this really smart. He was playing very aggressive, and right as the enemies are found, then he might start pushing more, but he wants to play pretty safe. So when he asked his team where the enemies were, they pinged that camp. Now he sees all of them down there. Look at how aggressive he immediately turns to. He charges right in, and he spins, and just does a ton of damage. That forces a pretty high cooldown off of the Turk, playing the Vikings, and then he immediately starts going on and seeing if he can't take this fort. Everyone goes missing from the other lanes. Where does he go? He goes, oh, they're down at bottom lane. There's a bunch of people at bottom lane. Let's go right back in, start spinning, take out this wave, gain some life back from the globe. We're going to walk away so we don't take unnecessary damage. Let's get this Viking a little low, and let's go straight back onto this fort one more time. So whenever you're playing against a group that you could do a lot against, this is your play style, right? Immediately sieging very hard, dominating them where you can, and trying to zone them out. But, I mean, look at how annoying the Turk is. He plays a mean Vikings. He's one of the best Vikings players that I know of. He doesn't play the Vikings too much anymore, but still, he's I mean, he doesn't play a lot of Heroes of the Storm anymore. But yeah, it's pretty scary. Level 10. So let's talk about level 7 that was picked up. It was Life Funnel, increasing the healing of Whirlwind by 35% of damage dealt. So this, instead of healing for 25, it's now 35%. What seems like an increase of 10% is actually closer to an increase of 30%, just purely because of how that math works out. Because you were only healing for 25%, now you're healing for 35%, which is essentially, yeah, 30% more than what you were healing for. So it's a pretty good talent. And then he picks up Wrath of the Berserker, allowing him to deal 40% more damage, which is going to allow him to siege more. And at the same time, it's going to allow him to heal for more, making him a little bit tankier. At the same time, it reduces the duration of stuns, roots, and slows against Sonya for 50%. Lasts for 15 seconds, but it can be extended past the duration of its cooldown by getting more rage. And you get more rage by attacking things, using your spear, and from my understanding, you also get rage from taking damage? Yes, taking damage. So if you're just in a really crazy fight, you can keep your Wrath of Berserker going for much longer than 60 seconds. And if you're just sieging, it's very easy to keep it going forever. But during team fights, it's a little tricky. So he sees someone on the enemy team pushing middle and bottom, but he's like, no, you know what? I'm going to join my team for the fight first, try to win in the beginning, and look at how much damage he's doing to this backline. I think this is something that people often forget, is that Sonya actually does a ridiculous amount of damage. Way more damage than people actually think. So he quickly destroyed the backline, leading to his team winning this team fight, and now he can get onto this objective. And in this particular build, it's very easy for him to collect up all the minions, spin, and let his spin kill all of the minions very quickly. Seeing that his team is going for this objective as well, if he wants to, he can go double soak the lanes instead. But I believe he ends up staying just to stick with the objective. But this is one of the big challenges about the Lost Vikings, is you can't just give them this free reign for a good portion of the game, because if you lose your keeps, it's very easy for their team to just close out the game during one of these objectives. So he had that choice. He had the choice of saving his keeps, or he had the choice of going to try to win a team fight. And he went for trying to win a team fight, and he immediately charged in on the back line, immediately popped Wrath of the Berserker, increasing his damage by 40%, and he dropped Ana at the start of that fight, followed up by dropping down another one right afterwards. Now that that's pushing, he decides not to go for it, and he heads down, waits for his team to go in first. His team tanks it while he drops the fort. Your damage on forts is very, very high, because in between every auto attack, you should be using a Seismic Slam, which is doing 293 damage until you're out of Fury, but the fort will likely go down before that. Doing camps is also very quick. The math on your doing your spin versus auto attacking in W is technically you should be using your spin on 3 or more, and you should be using your auto attack and W on 2 or more. There's a little bit of, if you can get that seismic slam to hit multiple things, then you should be doing auto attack and seismic slam on 3. And then you should only be spinning on 4 or more enemies. But at the same time, spin does heal you. I mean, so does auto attack if you go war paint, but your W does not. So there are certainly benefits to going either or. I would just say follow, as just to make this easier, follow the rule of thumb of spinning on 3 or more when doing camps or when doing wave clear or team fights or whatever. Even in spin build. If you go more auto attack build, then naturally it's going to be more valuable to auto attack rather than spin, just because of the benefits from the auto attack. And look at Wrath, 1 auto, 1 W did 70% of the health of Eric. But remember, Liam's focusing on keeping his team in this game. Focusing on getting experience, focusing on getting camps, not doing too much to try to chase down kills because it's not going to be worth the time to do so. So he's not chasing down kills. A lot of people are like, oh, the way to counter Vikings is to play Zeratul and get a bunch of kills. And it's like, that's not what he's doing at all. He's playing it safe. He's making sure that he doesn't get caught out of position where all the enemies are rotating up. And he's not chasing kills. He's focusing on the soak. He sees everyone down at bot lane, and he can make a decision. His whole team's going to go bot lane, so he can just cover mid lane. Top is safe, so he's just simply going to cover mid lane. And this game is all about decision making. Yes, he's dominating in team fights when he gets into team fights, but it's all about decision making because this whole game is decided by macro. Whenever you play against Vikings, so much of the game is decided by macro. He does hit level 16s for his team, and he's going to go in for a flank. He picks up Nerves of Steel at level 16. He pops his Wrath of Berserker and charges in, going for the Lunara first. Then he goes off to another one, pops Nerves of Steel so that he survives, but unfortunately that damage over time from Lunara is going to be too much. Puts them in a really rough position. And yes, he does go no escape in spin build. When Ruthless is available, it can do extra damage to targets that are lower health, but the way that he plays, he spins to get people low, and then he just does his auto attack in W. So having no escape allows him to reposition much better. We're going to fast forward through his death. His team does lose their keep because of that. He went for a flank. It did not pay off. And sometimes you need to do that limit testing every once in a while just to see. He's someone who doesn't need to do a lot of limit testing, but when you're going against these teams, some of the things that work against non-coordinated teams, they just don't work when you go against coordinated teams. And that's likely what happened here, is just a situation of he was expecting something to happen and it didn't quite run the way that it's worked in the past. Huge amount of healing from his level 7 talent, allowing him to essentially have more health when he goes past the enemy team than he had when he walked through it. He's able to take out one target that he was focused on before, take out a second target, and this is going to allow his team to win this objective, gain the majority of his life back, and set up for a pretty good push on this next one. They do have a camp pushing up in top lane, and at the same time, they do have bottom lane, which they will likely want to be pushing in on. Rather, Berserker's about to time out, but it's going to be only on a 15-second cooldown after it times out. He will pop the Nerves of Steel to tank a couple shots from the keep, and now he's back on the keep, gaining his life back using his health funnel, and then he will be just pushing very, very hard. High amounts of damage. He's going to be Hearthstoning because he sees that Cam still pushing up top. Now there's a Viking helping out that push. So if he can, again, prevent the loss while his team is pushing, that's going to be very valuable for his team. He doesn't chase Olaf. He simply just clears up this camp as fast as possible. Chasing Olaf would have just essentially done exactly what Olaf wanted. And with this next camp being available, there are two choices here. If their team wants to play it bold, he can leave this camp available. And what's going to happen to this camp is every time that he kills these two minions, this camp right here is going to resummon these two minions once again. And so he can effectively have all of his minions just die repeatedly and have this guy last forever. And that'll allow it to where his team gets one minion wave of soak that his enemy team doesn't get, and it could allow his team to get to level 20 at a decent pace. Or he can kill it so we can go back to double soaking. Liam knows that his team is going to be focused on trying to kill the Vikings and get those extra kills they need to catch up. So instead, he focuses on getting things prepared and easier for him to double soak so his team can focus more on getting kills. So you're going to start seeing his team ganking the Vikings over and over and over while he starts setting up his waves to be very efficient waves, very powerful, so that he can go and double soak lanes. He backs here because he doesn't want to rotate. Everyone's missing. So a lot of what Liam does is whenever the enemies go missing, he acts weird. But he's not actually acting weird. He just doesn't want to walk through a bush, die, and then have the enemy team just end out the game. You see this from some of the higher level players that are used to playing against teams that ambush. Liam was on an HEC team at the end of HEC. He was on Endemic. So he has played against the best players in this game. He knows what that spooky feeling before an ambush, and he prepares for it more often than anyone else ever does. So you'll see him do that quite a bit. As the fight's popping up, he essentially just tells his team, nope, we're not doing that. We're just going to clear up, try to hit level 20s, and just stay safe. Once we hit 20s, we're good. This game's ours. And that's what they're doing. They are just holding back, just trying to wait until this level 20 hits. Once 20 hits, they're going for it. He leaves some of the catapults up for a bit because he wants to keep the wave pushed on his side of the map. Like I said, now they hit 20, and the talent that he picks up at 20 is Ignore Pain. Ignore Pain is 60 armor for 4 seconds. This is an amazing talent. You pop this in combination with Nerves of Steel at about 20% health, and you will survive for the next 4 seconds, and you'll likely heal back a lot. Some of the other talents that were picked up by his team that he may need to prepare around are the Ice Blink, Weak Spot, which will give reduction of armor onto one of the enemies, Storm Shield, and the longer stun from the Radiating Faith. 2-second stun on up to 5 enemy heroes. So he will be looking to follow up on the stuns and the lowered armor while also being an unkillable force that's going to dive into the backline. So he goes straight into the backline because he knows he can pop both of his cooldowns to mitigate the damage that he's about to take. He drops Sylvanas, immediately goes on to Ana, doing a ridiculous amount of damage. Ana cannot deal with the amount of damage that he is doing, and with Lunara also being distracted by him, he grabs onto Lunara, increases movement speed by 20%, chases after her, needs to land one single ability to catch up to her, but he can't do it, so he's not going to be able to kill her. She jumps away, like we've seen in her video, that she's able to get away from that. But with that push, they are going to have 2 people dead on the enemy team. Lost Vikings is not great for trying to defend against this. Diablo's Souls should be out of the way as well, and now it is Sonya with that high siege damage onto a keep, and now it's going to be Sonya with that high siege damage heading onto the core, healing back a decent amount of the damage that she took, auto-attacking to gain back everything, popping once again that Nerves of Steel to give that armor, and then we'll have Ignore Pain back up before this core is even dropped. So that is dropping through the health of this very quickly, popping once again Wrath the Berserker, increasing the damage by an amount, and there you go. So one more time, we will go over the build just so you guys can see it once again. This is Liam's build specifically for this map. Going Warpaint primarily against targets that don't do a lot of auto attack damage. Going the block if you are going against targets that have a lot of auto attack damage. Hurricane to reduce the cooldown of your Whirlwind. Life Funnel to gain more life back. Wrath of the Berserker to increase your damage by a significant amount. No Escape to chase down just about anyone, including Lunara. Nerves of Steel to survive when you're diving their backline. And Ignore Pain to also survive while diving their backline. During the early portions of the game, he plays extremely aggressive, trying to destroy the front walls, trying to destroy everything that he can. By the time it hits mid-game, he immediately dives the backline into every team fight, gains his life back on health funnel, and usually drops out a healer or damage dealer. When he hits the late game, he will even start off the fight, having everyone fire all of the abilities into him while he has Ignore Pain running, and then he will chase down their backline while he has Wrath the Berserker, taking them out very, very quickly. And that is how Liam plays Sonya. Is it good? It is very, very good and very effective. If he was not playing Sonya in this game, and if he was not in this game, his team would certainly lose this game. So that is Liam on Sonya. Thank you guys so much for watching, and feel free to check out my other videos.